Alrighty, guys, so we have some really interesting news to talk about here. One that I think would have been obvious, but then also it's just so fascinating because of all the different permutations that could come from it and the way that it was broken. Because it wasn't announced, right? The news was broken by online sources, but it's not like Marvel came out and announced that Chris Evans is coming back in Avengers Doomsday. Now, it's not as simple as that because there are a lot of things that we just don't know yet. And so we're here to talk about all those different things and whether or not this is a good idea or not, and whether or not we should be surprised, excited, disappointed, etc. So let's get into this because it's super interesting. And as of right now, there are very, very few details. If there are more that come out, I'll be sure to add on to this segment and post it in the podcast later. But as of the recording, there's just very little that we know so far. So Chris Evans, according to the Wrap, has reportedly been cast in Avengers Doomsday, which is such a silly thing to say because, Chris Evans, Captain America, has been cast in an Avengers movie. Okay, great. I wonder who he could be playing. But then you start to think about it and you go, oh, that's interesting because the Wrap is reporting that he has been cast and it's an undisclosed role. So we don't know what role he is playing. Now, I would say this, right? If you had asked me, if you're looking at the two Avengers films, Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, right? And you're looking at those two films and you're saying, what are the odds that Chris Evans comes back in one of those two films? I would give it an 80% chance because Chris Evans came back in Deadpool and Wolverine, so he's already shown a penchant to be willing to come back for a pretty extended role, maybe 10, 15 minutes of screen time, so pretty long, actually, relatively speaking, maybe 10 minutes. And so he came back in the MCU already. And B, it's the multiverse. I expect everybody and their mother to be in this movie. I expect Scarlett Johansson to show up for a little bit, Elizabeth Olsen to show up for a little bit. I expect, Jeremy Renner, obviously still, the other three, core Avengers actors are still there. Mark Ruffalo, Jeremy Renner, Chris Hemsworth obviously will be there. I expect everybody, even people who have died in the MCU, to show up there because variants, right? Variants. So here's the interesting thing. By not disclosing who Chris Evans is playing, it's not that surprising to me because if you had asked me this question of, is Chris Evans going to return to the MCU in Doomsday or Secret Wars, I would have said absolutely yes. 80%, 80 or 85% he would come back because he could just be playing a variant, right? There are so many random things you could do with a variant of Chris Evans as Captain America. I know a popular rumor, and nothing had been confirmed at that point or anything. A popular rumor or fan theory was that he was going to be playing, some version of a Captain Hydra variant of Captain America. Sure, you could have any sort of version of Captain America that you wanted as a variant, for sure. He could, obviously, the big thing is he could return as Human Torch because Fantastic Four, are going to have a role in the next Avengers films, the next two Avengers films. And I think that Doctor Doom being the villain obviously means that the Fantastic Four are going to be even more important in these two Avengers films. So it makes sense that, if you're going to have a Council of Reeds, which has been rumored for a while, all the Reed Richards with Ewan Grufford and Miles Teller and Pedro Pascal, John Krasinski, that makes sense as well, right? To have all of them. Then you might have multiple Johnny Storms and Joseph Quinn and Chris Evans. So of course it makes sense. But what's interesting about this is that if you want to keep secrets, right? So this is what's more interesting to me about this news. If you want to keep secrets, right? If it's a little bit of a smaller role, because Deadpool and Wolverine, he was in it for a while, and I was honestly shocked. I was shocked that nobody had really reported on this beforehand because it's so hard to keep secrets these days. But the fact that he was in Deadpool and Wolverine, it's amazing that they kept that a secret, but he was still only in it for about 10 minutes, right? That's not a hard thing, to not announce, at least, because even Toby and Andrew, they refused to announce that because, they weren't playing massive roles, even though they were in those films in No Way Home for about 20 minutes or so. But if the Wrap is confirming that Chris Evans is cast in Avengers Doomsday, it leads me to believe that he is going to be a part of the main cast somehow. And so that makes me wonder just a little bit more. And also the fact that Avengers Doomsday, who knows actually how much multiverse is going to be involved in Doomsday. I know it's the multiverse saga, but you have to imagine it's going to go full multiverse extravaganza in Avengers Secret Wars. But in Avengers Doomsday, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if the majority of the film was just sort of Earth 616 centric, maybe with another universe in parallel. And, maybe that's where Chris Evans, Captain America, or Johnny Storm, or whoever comes out of. But the fact that they're not announcing Chris Evans returns as Captain America, makes me think, okay, so maybe it's Johnny Storm, or maybe it's another variant of Captain America. But, also the fact that they're announcing it this far in advance. And I know that, Marvel has not officially announced Chris Evans coming back as Captain America. But, just the same as they didn't announce Alfred Molina coming back as Doc Ock. But that news came out almost 2 years before Spider-Man No Way Home. And he was in the movie for about 30 to 40 minutes. He had a significant role. He was a part of the main cast. So was Jamie Foxx, and so was Willem Dafoe. And they were all, reported by the major outlets well in advance. but Toby and Andrew were not. So it's interesting, right? It makes me think that Chris Evans' role in Avengers Doomsday is going to be so significant that it's just not going to be able to be hidden from the trailers, from the marketing, etc., which is interesting. And also maybe the fact that they want to use Chris Evans in the marketing to try to garner more interest, because the irony, not the irony, but just sort of the significance of this is not lost on me or should, anyone, because it is Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. back in the MCU in an Avengers film. They have literally been, and they are literally going to be, because I'm going to assume that Chris Evans is going to appear in Avengers Secret Wars as well. So through 6 Avengers films, they are going to be in every single one. From 2012 all the way until 2027 when Avengers Secret Wars apparently will come out. So I think that's significant in itself. And we'll see, maybe this is the desperation play, trying to garner as much interest in these films that wasn't there in the first place because of the multiverse saga. But it's interesting, right? So if I had to put any money down, which I won't, but if I had to put any money down, I would say, yeah, Chris Evans coming back. Before even hearing this news, I would have put it at 85%. But now the question becomes, who is he going to play? I would put it at 50% that it's a Captain America variant. I would put it at 35% that it's another Johnny Storm variant. And I would put it at maybe a 15% chance that it's something else. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he's coming back as Old Man Steve Rogers, and Old Man Steve Rogers fights Doctor Doom. I don't know. And I'd give, I'd also give a separate maybe 1 in 3 chance that he's playing multiple characters. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up in these films as both Johnny Storm and a version of Captain America as well. I think that it makes sense. But I think that it's also super interesting the fact that it seems to be hinting towards the fact that he might have a major role, not just a very quick cameo like in Deadpool and Wolverine, because obviously there was no need to say Chris Evans cast in Deadpool and Wolverine because it was just a quick, fun surprise, although he was, it was important to the story. But I think that that's also an interesting thing to note there. So size of the role, who knows? Who he's playing, who knows? But I think that it's a developing story. So guys, let me know in the comments down below, who do you think Chris Evans is playing and how big of a role do you think he will have in Avengers Doomsday? Let me know in the comments down below.